हेलो फ्रेंड्स, स्वागत है आपका सबकुछ सिंह चैनल पे। और आज के इस वीडियो में हम लोग के साथ हैं बिजॉय रविंद्रन। बिजॉय जी की राइटिंग को हम लोग कॉमिक्स में पढ़ते रहते हैं और ज्यादातर फैंस उनको पसंद करते हैं। लेकिन आज हमारे पास मौका है उनसे फेस टू फेस मिलने का, बात करने का और वो सब सवाल करने का जो शायद उनकी कहानियों के थ्रू हमें आंसर नहीं हो पाते। बिजॉय जी से पर्सनली हमको उनके आंसर्स मिल पाएंगे। बिजॉय जी, स्वागत है आपका सबकुछ सिंह चैनल पे और आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका हमको समय देने के लिए। थैंक यू सर। सो
Thank you.
in a
Thank you,
moment.
Mr.
Okay.
Singh, for having me.
Okay, sir. So let's start with the very first and the very basic question. First,
Mhm.
tell us about yourself, क्योंकि हम आपके सिर्फ नाम को जानते हैं, आपकी कहानियों को जानते हैं और सिर्फ इतना जानते हैं जो थोड़ा थोड़ा सोशल मीडिया पे देखते हैं, और सोशल मीडिया को वी कैन नॉट ट्रस्ट कंप्लीटली। सो सबसे पहले हम आपसे जानना चाहेंगे आपके बारे में फ्रॉम द वेरी बिगिनिंग।
Okay, okay, from the very beginning. Where do I start? I'm just thinking that. Okay, let me put it this way, right? I have had interest in comics from a very young age, and it has happened completely by accident. Okay, like I remember specifically the incident also. When I was 5 years old, it was on my birthday, I remember. My dad, he brought home a magazine, a children's magazine. Okay. I was actually, so I did all of my schooling outside of India. I was in the UAE. That's where I grew up. So my dad brought home this children's magazine. Okay. And on the back of the magazine, there was this 3 column comic strip of Phantom.
ओके।
Okay. So the moment is, and by that point, I knew of like these other the normal standard characters we know, right? We all know like Superman, Batman, Spider Man, all of that I know, right? But then the moment I saw this, right, I was like something else happened, like in my head. I was like, oh, you can have characters like this also, right? Or this is like completely different from everything else that I've seen. So I think the interest in comics really started with those three panels, right? And then I started sort of reading more and got a lot more interested in all of that. But of course, it was just a pastime, right? Like most of us started, right?
या
So just reading whenever I got the opportunity, not like a very voracious reader or regular reader or anything. In fact, even access to comics was limited at that time. Uh, so in my life, right, access to comics came in spurts. Okay, like so the first instance was what I told you, the Phantom, right? After that, I think the big this thing came when so like I said, I was living in the UAE, right?
या
And to get Indian newspapers at that time in the 90s, early 90s, we had to go to a particular shop. Okay, it's called India Book House, right? So we used to go there.
ओके
So apart from the newspapers, they also used to have Diamond Comics.
ओके
Okay, so again, Phantom there, right? Phantom Mandrake, Pinky, all of those things, right? So, so I started like reading those, and then they also had like other children's publications like Champak and Chandamama and all of that, right?
ओके
So started reading all of those. Again, little bit interest developed, right? Then again after that, once I got into my like eighth, ninth, tenth, and all, there was absolutely no comics anywhere. There was no access to it, and I didn't really actively look for it either. Once I got into college, when I was doing my engineering, right, that's when comics made a very big comeback in my life because I had a batchmate who had this DVD that was filled with like some, I don't know, some two GB worth of
ओके ओके
that he had ripped from somewhere. Uh, those are all the the classics, the English classic comics that we know of today, like your Sandman and Sin City and Spawn and Watchmen. So uh, I had my big sort of exposure to how much comics has evolved since the last time I read it. Right, uh, I the that whole coming of age, right, that happened in my engineering phase, right. So with that, I think at that point, so I'm also an artist. Okay, I mean it's wrong to call myself an artist when there are much better artists out there in the world. But at least I used to draw then. Okay, so in my engineering phase, this new discovery of comics, I got interested in drawing, creating
Hmm.
comics also. So I started actively pursuing, like, creating comics for various events and, magazine and, stuff like that. And I really got interested that, I had in my head that I had to make my own comics at some point, right? At that time, it was that I would both write and draw, right? Uh, but of course, I was not actively looking to become a writer or anything. I was looking to become an artist. Okay,
Okay.
so from there, I was looking for opportunities, and I found something online. There was like this UK-based company called Polycomical. They're a very independent publisher.
Hmm.
Uh, so I showed them some of my work. They were interested, and they said, "Hey, we have this book. Okay, why don't you try, drawing for it?" So I did one web comic of some 23 pages, something like that. It's there
Okay.
online. Please don't look for it. It's horrible. Uh, right. So it started there, right? And without making sort of extending my answer too long, um, what happened really was that I realized that okay, I was still drawing, but if you okay, but the point was that after I was working at that point, and with a day job, coming back home at night and then doing this was not sustainable. Because I was missing deadlines and things like that. I couldn't do it anymore. So then I was like, okay, what do I do next, right? That's when the whole, I started thinking, okay, like what am I here to do? I want to make comics, right? But then the point is, drawing is just a medium. It's just a way of telling stories, right? So what I really want to do is tell stories. Okay, art is just one way of doing it. So I thought, okay, maybe I should try writing, right? So at that point, I didn't take it seriously. This is around 2010, maybe, yeah, 2009, 10.
Hmm.
So I was just like very on a very hobby scale. I was trying out, writing stuff here and there just for myself, right? Not to publish or anything. But then later on, by the time it was like 2015 to 2017, like when I was doing my masters, at that point, I got really, really serious about writing. That I want to do something with this, and some of the books, not some actually, maybe yeah. In fact, some of the books that you will see coming from me, including Technicolor Lovers, which is just
Yeah.
released, right? Those were ideas from back then uh,
Okay.
2015 to 2017, right? So it's kind of evolved and reached this stage. So yeah, so that's basically it, right? And then there was a whole. I was trying to break into the industry, to the Indian comic book industry, right? I was basically pinging every publisher on Facebook, asking, "Hey, please, do you guys have any work that I can do?" Right? Between 2015 and 2017, this is the only thing I did. I pinged every single publisher, right? Nobody had, I mean, either people did not trust me enough to give me something or they did not have work, including, Yali and Holika at that point. We joke about it now. But then, yeah, I still kept trying, right? I was like, no, I'm not going to give up. But at one point, I realized that if nobody gives me work, I'll create my own stuff. I'll do self publishing, right? So the plan
Hmm.
was to self publish in 2021 when the COVID thing hit. I was going to self publish my first thing, but that's when Yali put out an ad on Facebook saying they want writers. I reached out, and then things just happened, and from there Codename Alpha happened, and now Technical Love is happening, and then Holy Cow reached out, and we did Worm
Hmm.
together, and then other stuff as well. So yeah, that's been the journey in short.
So it's been a good journey, like from a writer, from a reader first,
Yeah.
then the artist, then the storyteller, then coming up to the publisher as well. So It is, it's been a long journey. काफी लंबी ये जर्नी रही है. It's like
Yeah,
from 5 years age, and it's been like I think it's like 30 years of journey with the comics in different
35.
avatars.
Yeah, 35. Yeah.
35, yeah. So आपको क्या चेंजेस फील होते हैं कि लाइक इट व्हाट इट वाज इन 2006-7 और प्रायर टू दैट, एंड 2015 वाज द टाइम व्हिच वाज कि यहाँ पे इंडियन इंडस्ट्री में तो कॉमिक्स वर ऑलमोस्ट डेड, एंड
Mm.
वी कैन थैंक टू कोविड, इट वाज अ ब्लेसिंग इन डिसगाइज कि
Yeah,
कॉमिक्स को एक तरह से बूम मिला था. सो व्हाट
correct.
चेंजेस डू यू फील कि पहले तो ये था बट अभी जो सिनेरियो है, हाउ गुड दिस सिनेरियो इज, और या व्हाट गुड कैन बी, और इन शॉर्ट आई कैन से व्हाट इज द फ्यूचर नाउ.
Mm. So, see, I have a slightly differing opinion to that, right? Because I mean, just like you said, right? There are there are other folks also who say that the industry was dead. Some people say it's dead now, right? There are folks who said that pre-COVID it was non-existent and things like that. But then, according to me, right, like I have seen uh, spurts of activities happening in the industry throughout, right? Um, uh, the point that I actively started following the Indian comic book scene was from I think 20, let's say 2015, right? Or 2012, maybe around that time, right? Uh, 2012, 2014, maybe. So at that time, I was actively reading these anthologies called comics.india. It's published by this person called Bharat Murthy, right? In fact, a lot of our popular writers now, like Sudeep Menon, even artists like Vivek Goel, right? All of them
Yeah.
started out in that comics.india. Shamik also, I think so, if I'm not
Yeah,
wrong.
he
I
was
think he had one
doing
story.
Ramayan and all with Graphic India. He was working at that time, 2012,
No, that
13,
was there.
14.
Graphic India was
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
but this was
yes,
more from Graphic India is more of, I would call, like the mainstream space, right? Where
yeah.
it's a corporate, right? And they have a proper they're a proper publisher and all of that. Whereas the ones that I was following more was the independent scene. Okay, so Comics.India was a completely independent thing, right? It was almost like a self-publishing kind of venture, right? And then there were other books like Antariksh Tales. I forget the names of some of those, which are all like less than 100 page, maybe I don't know, like 50, 60 page books, right? Where a lot of these people got their opportunity. So I was seeing, and also one more thing I want to call out. There was this company called Manta Ray, I think, at that point. They were releasing the series of books called Mixtape. Okay, they were all like slice of life comics. Okay, very very good, very very good. Okay, it's
Okay,
not superhero or genre stuff. It's slice of life, like love stories or some drama, emotional, that kind of stuff. Excellent, right? So I was seeing those, right, and I was really inspired by it. That okay, there is no active industry like the West, right? These publishers are not producing content. They're not churning out content every month, right? But there are these gems that come out, once in
yeah,
a while, and these were the gems that were really keeping the industry alive, right?
right.
And I think that has continued throughout, right? Like even now, right? Okay, yes, there are books coming out, right? But the ones that are keeping the industry alive are the really good ones among that, the ones that really sort of stand out, try to do something different, right?
Yes,
That's what
people
inspires
are
other
looking for it.
creators to do their own stuff,
हाँ.
and that's how the industry keeps moving, right? So
Right now, people are looking for those books कि हाँ ये आया था, but we had no idea. तो अब इसको एक बार देखते हैं. So people are going back to those
correct,
books. You are absolutely right
correct,
कि हाँ वो
correct,
independent work was the thing. शायद मुझे लगता है उस independent work की वजह से ही कोविड में जब मौका मिला तो everything came up in the
correct,
mainstream.
correct. In fact, give you an example, right? One of the books that is heavily being discussed today is this book called Odayan. Okay, I don't know if
Odin,
you
yes,
yeah, Odayan,
yeah.
right? So Odayan was released what, like 10 plus,
हाँ,
maybe just 10 years ago, right?
it was in
Uh,
Jump books. It was there. The
yeah,
stories were there in Jump books. Yes.
comics Jump, yeah. And there's been a resurgence of it now, right? TNT is another book, right? Tarana
हाँ,
Tantrics, right?
TNT.
Still, people are that the interest is coming back now. So I think the Indian sort of comic book space is a little unique. That
हाँ.
we all like nostalgia. So sometimes we wait for books to become nostalgia before we start appreciating it.
then
So
we
books we are
appreciate
releasing
that.
today, right? People appreciate 10 years later, maybe, right?
Right.
So
That means, yeah.
no, no, sorry. So I'm saying it's a just a funny observation, right? But it's a good thing because this is what, like you said, right? During COVID, people who read these things are the ones who got inspired to become
Mhm.
publishers of their own, right? And keeps the industry moving forward. It's our unique way of doing things, but yeah, but we're still. I feel we're still alive. We're not dead.
Yeah. So are we able to transfer these books to the upcoming generations? Like हम nostalgic generations तो हैं, so we are reading it. But
Hmm.
are we able to transfer these type of reading habits or the craze for books? I will
Hmm.
not say comics भी, comics वर्ड भी अब चेंज होता जा रहा है. It's not सुपर हीरो बेस्ड जिसमें हमने स्टोरीज भी हम
Yeah.
देखते हैं. अगर हम अल्फा की बात करें, चहल पहल की तरह से स्टोरीज आई हैं, और
Yeah.
it's not overall super hero based. So are we
Correct.
able
Correct.
to transfer this, you can say, whole scenario to the upcoming generation?
I feel we need to try a little harder because, of course, today there's a whole lot of distractions, right? Like your devices and
Yeah.
video games, and I mean, even within books, you have your manga and stuff like that, right? I
Right.
feel like um, it's a very difficult task to understand, child psychology, right, or what a child likes, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, as adults, right, we feel like we know what a child wants, and we try to create that, but that's not exactly what children today want.
The child
In
want,
fact,
yes.
right, I'll take an example of the film industry, right? Film industry, there are children's films that come out, okay, like very few, right? But
Mhm.
those children films always feel like outdated, or like, who watches these, right?
Right.
You kind of get that feeling, like, who watches it? Do kids watch these? No, right? So there is that challenge of trying and understanding, keeping up with the generation, right? Keeping up with the current generation. What are they interested in, right? What are the current trends that are going on? It's a challenge. I don't think anybody has cracked that yet, except probably the manga folks, right? People like
Mm.
Crunchyroll and all are doing a crazy job with their marketing, right? All the kids are
Right.
flocking. Uh, Dude, I tell you a very strange incident. Okay, I think it was one of the Comic Cons last year. Okay, Mumbai, or not Mumbai, Bangalore probably. There was a Japanese DJ who had come to perform. Okay,
Mhm.
he was playing these anime soundtracks. Okay, and I was like, who knows anime soundtracks? I mean, you might know one or two songs, right? Dude, everybody was singing along. Like, these kids were singing along
Right.
word by word. I was like shocked. I was like, wow, like, how is this possible, right? So that really shows, right? There's a gap, there's a generation gap, right?
Yeah.
Disconnect between our understanding of what that generation wants. So that attempt needs to. It's a serious attempt that needs to be made. Some publisher needs to put their head into it and try and crack it, right? I mean, even from my side, from Black Sheep side, right? Tadam and me, we are looking at things like this, content like this, that might attract them. We've not reached a conclusion or any story yet, but it's a
Mhm.
pursuit that we are actively looking at, cracking. So yeah,
Okay,
the
so
short answer
yeah.
to your question is no. I don't think we've managed to do that. But at least, grabbing a child's interest, I don't think we've done that yet, right? But the good thing is, right, when a child grows up, right, they will be old enough to appreciate some of the things that we are writing now.
Right.
Okay, like
Yes.
some of the more mature stuff, right? They will end up starting to, they'll end up reading that and appreciating those. But yeah, from a child-friendly content perspective, I don't think India market is cracked it yet. But there is a very good example that I'm completely glossing over, which is Amar Chitrakatha and Tinkle.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
they
Right.
are still relevant. How are they still
Right.
relevant? There has to be some reason behind that, right? Like they,
Yeah.
I think I think how do I put it? It's about delivering clean content that is extremely well researched, well thought about, and well
Every
edited
book.
if put
Every
out.
book.
And not to forget this one. It needs to be timely. They put out books every what, like, month? I don't know. Right? They have a
Mhm.
publishing schedule, right? So the whole concept of an ACK book coming out or a Tinkle coming out, that becomes like a mainstay in a child's mind who's actively reading it. That Okay, they end up growing up with it, right? As opposed to what the rest of us publishers are doing, which is like a book a year, that kind of
Uh-huh.
thing, right? Where yeah, it's just a side thing. People may not even remember us. So there is definitely something we learned from Amar Chitragatha, folks. Yeah, but unfortunately, us being independent publishers, we don't really have the resources to become that
Uh-huh.
regular or money,
That
right?
is,
So that's a challenge. Yeah,
yeah, that's a big obstacle as well to reach out to the people. You have stories, but it's a costly thing. When the readers
correct,
are less, it's definitely a costly thing.
correct.
So now coming to the most recent project, Black Sheep.
Hmm. Yes.
So you have been associated with Yali and
Yeah.
now coming up with Black Sheep. So how this transformation have happened? What motivated you to come to Black Sheep and come up with an independent publication?
Hmm. Good question. There's actually two stories that sort of led to the creation of Black Sheep, right? One is, of course, like Tadam and myself, we collaborated on Codename Alpha, right?
Yeah.
And that was a very good sort of working relationship. It's the kind of partnership that you don't find very often, right? We felt that there was something there, right? And we needed to do more projects moving forward, but we did not know what, right? We just knew that we had to do something. So that was one, right? The second was last year, right, or rather maybe 2023, right? 2023 was a bit of a dull year for me because I was writing a lot of things, but none of those things were coming out. Uh, um, Either because it was taking too long, or because it just stalled midway because some change happened, right? Or simply that I did not own those things, right? Like
Right.
the IP, right? I don't own it, so I cannot decide when I can put it out, how I can put it out, things like that, right? It's not my control at all. So then I decided that okay, there are stories in my head that I want to tell, right? If I try and sort of pitch it to a publisher, it's always going to become the publisher's baby, right? They own it,
Yeah.
they decide what format, what is best for it, right? They decided, but which I didn't want to do, right? And not all publishers are ready to accept every story I give them, right?
Hmm.
Publishers have their own sort of philosophies and things like that, which is why the whole thought of okay, like a creator owned some label, right? Like a comic book label is something I needed to start. So this is the second thing, right? So then when me and Tadam were discussing, right, this whole thought, I told him this thing, right, and he also had the same thought that okay, you know what, like should we maybe think of combining both of them together, right?
Hmm.
So that's where the whole idea of Black Sheep came in, right? And I mean, even the name Black Sheep was sort of that we are sort of not the usual folks, right? We kind of
Uh-huh.
outcasts in
Yeah.
a way, right? Because we don't follow the usual process. So our thing was okay, we have these stories, right? We are going to own these characters. We're going to own these stories. We are even going to create the product, right? We're going to create the book, right? But we will partner with existing publishers to help us with the publishing process. Because of course we don't have a distribution network or
Yeah.
printing
Right.
capabilities, all of that, or warehousing and all of that. Right? We thought okay, we'll partner with folks, right? And even the nature of stories, right? No, like some of them are definitely like ripe for the Indian market, like Technicolor lovers, for example, right? Certain others we're thinking it need not be like limited, like meant for just an Indian audience alone, right? Could be slightly broader, maybe slightly more international. Again, it's an experiment, right? I don't know if we'll be successful or not. Hope we are, but that's what, like these are the kind of things we need to try, right?
Yeah.
To try and see if we can break out of this bubble that we've created for
Hmm.
ourselves, right? Can there be a crossover sort of product that
Right.
crossover into other industries that are not Indian, right? So that's the whole thought process behind Black Sheep. But I think the most important philosophy is that it's a creator owned thing. Okay,
Yeah.
so the IP is owned by either me or Tadam or both of us come together, right? and right now it's just two of us, right? But we are a collective, which means that potentially in the future we could grow. Other artists and writers could come in. So whatever they create under our label will be owned by
Okay, that's a good thing.
Image Comics started in the US, right?
Hmm.
It's a similar sort of model that we are looking at.
Okay, so yeah, step have to be taken, and you have taken the first step with Technicolor lovers. So
Yeah.
we, as myself as a comic, because the way you have introduced it, that was
Mhm.
something different, and that was something which was creating a hype for it. I was also like, "Hi, ye kya wo-" the glitch thing which you came up with Black Sheep and the posters which you are providing with the same thing. So yeah, it is
Mhm.
creating an enthusiasm among the folks
Mhm.
which are ready to read, and I think most of the people who I know, they have pre-ordered it. So,
Mhm.
what exactly Technicolor Lovers is?
Mhm.
क्या है ये?
So yeah, thanks for the compliment. It's good to hear. It's good to hear, especially because all those videos are created by me. Like I don't know video creation and all of that. Okay, I just pick up whatever tutorial I can find on YouTube and do this. Anyway, yeah, coming to technical now. So like I said, right, this is one of the ideas that I had from I think around 2010 or 2012, right? Around that time, I'd gotten this idea. Again, I need so okay. The inspiration for this, right, came from this book that I told you, Comics.India. It was an
Yeah.
anthology, okay, published by Bharat Murthy. There was a story in it, okay. I don't remember the name of the story, right? But it was about a mute assassin. Okay, he's a man who wears all black, right? He's a
Mhm.
bald guy, okay, like only wears black, doesn't speak much, okay, but he's an assassin, so he goes around killing people, right? It was written by Sudeep Menon, okay.
Okay.
It was written and drawn by Sudeep Menon, okay. That was really the story that inspired me to start create thinking about creating my own comics. Okay, because I had read Western comics, right? By that point, Indian comics as well, right? I'd read like all the graphic India stuff, which is Virgin Comics back then, right? I read all
Hmm.
of that, but when I saw this, right, I was like, okay, you can actually have a noir or a crime influence story that is in an
Mhm.
Indian setting with Indian characters. Somehow it
Right.
didn't strike me because I had read Sin City and all of that. Okay, but the
Yeah.
fact that okay, it can be in an Indian setting, right? That didn't really strike. But the moment I read this, I was like, wow, okay, this is something, right? I should try this. So, so I wanted to write a noir, okay, and like something with a horror influence, right? Like a noir horror sort of thing. uh, and then I started thinking of ideas, right? And one of the I'm like too much into this true crime stuff because I consume a lot of true crime documentary and like articles and stuff like that. So one of the characters, not characters, like one of the real life people that caught my attention was this serial killer called Otto Shankar. Okay,
Mhm.
which you may have heard of. He's a serial killer in based out of the Tamil Nadu region, right? He used to go around murdering people. He was an auto driver. But what influenced me was not the fact that he was a serial killer, but the fact that he was a serial killer who was influenced by cinema. Okay, it's like cinema made me do this, right? That
Mhm.
so the idea sort of started from there, right? I started thinking initially. I thought, okay, maybe it should just be the Auto Shankar thing. I create like a fictionalized version of it, but then it changed, right? And then maybe I thought, okay, maybe it should be auto rickshaw driver who's a vigilante. Okay, he's a
Okay.
serial killer, but he's a vigilante also, right? So he
Present.
goes around at night, and there are other sort of crazy, these similar sort of characters roaming around the city at night, and then he has to fight with them and all of that, right? He started there, but then of course that story didn't really go anywhere. So I kept it in a box, for years, right? The only thing that came out of my thoughts then was when I was doing a master's, I had created a poster of this book. That time it was called Technicolor Lover, single, not lovers.
Lower.
It was just Lover. Okay, it was a poster. You can still find it online somewhere, or I can share it with you.
Sure.
So I just put that out right on the internet, uh, and now right after all these years, right, and the idea came back, and it has evolved significantly. Okay, it's not. It still has some influences of their Auto Shankar serial killer thing, but it's not about Auto Shankar at all. Okay, and even the story is not about a serial killer vigilante or anything like that. It's completely different. The only thing that I've retained from that is that whole cinema influence, right? That
Hmm.
especially in today's day and age, right? We keep talking, right? Like
Yeah.
kids are getting influenced by violence in on screen and things like that, right? So the whole influence that cinema can have on a person, right? That's the sort of exploration in technical levels. But I multiply that by 11 in the sense that what if an entire village is obsessed with cinema,
Okay.
right? Then what happens, right?
That's
So
lovers. That's what lovers says.
no, the lovers thing you'll actually discover a little later. Probably at the end
Okay.
of the book, you might figure out the answer. Uh, but yeah, I mean, you could interpret it that way as well. That the entire village is that way. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point actually. Yeah. So yeah, so that's how it sort of evolved to the current stage, right? So if I was to explain in short what it is a detective story, okay, about a man who's looking for his daughter, right? He comes to a village looking for his daughter, but then once he comes into the village, he gets caught, he gets entangled in this conflict between two groups of people, okay.
Okay.
And before he knows it, he realizes that whatever answers he needs, right, about his daughter, he will get it in this village, between these two people. But before he knows it, he's too deep into this conflict that he cannot get out, right? And he time is running out. He must discover the truth, but something very horrible is going to happen to this village as well.
Okay.
So yeah. So it's like a detective noir with some folk horror influences. Very hard to describe like a single genre thing, right? But yeah, it's something like that. And it's been influenced by stuff like, I mean, obviously other
Yeah.
noir comics that I've read, like Sin City, and even there's this book called Black Mumba that was
Huh.
released by written by Ramvi and a
Yeah.
whole
It's
bunch of
there.
artists. So there's some influence from there as well, and of course Sudeep Menon and his stuff.
दादा भाभी
So
original
yeah,
idea.
that's
So is it going to be a one shot or is it going to be a series?
it's a not it's a mini series, 3 issues.
Okay, three
So
issues. Okay.
this, yeah, so the first part, the first reel called Aranya Kantam, that is, it's called Aranya is forest, right?
Forest,
Uh,
yes.
so, uh, so the first part, there's a lot of that happening there. The setting is there is a forest involved, right? So first part is that. Second is called Sundara Kandam, which is the beautiful chapter that's set in a
Yeah.
city. It's set in the
Okay.
city of Trivandrum. That's a little more crime, gangster crime. That sort of. It's a continuation of the same story, but the genres shift slightly. The third one is called Yuddh Gandam, which means the war chapter.
The water
Right. That's
chapter,
where
yes.
all shit goes wrong, and everyone is fighting with everyone else. So yeah, it's
Okay.
3 issues, mini series.
Okay, so Black Sheep have came up with his, you can say, the dream child, and now what are the future projects or what genres you are going to focus upon? Like, is it be a storytelling more or is it be a superhero stuff more?
We no, I think we are not really bound by genres right now, or we're trying not to be influenced by genres, because what happens is, right, like suddenly if let's say horror comedy becomes popular, right,
Hmm.
everyone starts doing horror comedy, right, then we'll also get compelled,
Right.
oh okay, we also need to do horror comedy,
Right.
and we'll just come up with something for the sake of being part of that crowd, right.
Hmm.
But as our tagline says, right, we dare to stray. We want to move away from that, the rest of the crowd, right. So we will only put out books that we feel are stories that are worth telling. Okay, if it's something that's already been done, we are not going to do that. So superhero, as of now, we do not have any superhero book planned, but that might change, right? That might change. As of now, the series that we have planned are, one is Technicolor, obviously. Second
Yeah.
is something called Druk, the Last Dragon, that Tadam is drawing and I'm writing. That's a maybe that's the closest to what you can call a superhero series, but it's not a superhero series. It's more of a kung fu, like an action, like the Hong Kong or the Chinese wuxia films, right?
Hmm.
Action films. It's an homage to that sort of thing. But of course, it's an Indian book. The protagonist is from Arunachal Pradesh, right? So. So something set it's set all over India, but the protagonist is from Arunachal. So that's one. And then the third one is a series called Om,
Oh,
AUM, right? So Om, the Wrath of God. It's sorry, Om, the Path of God is called. Shit, I just revealed the name of the third book, which I should have. Okay, so yeah, it's Om, the Path of God. That's what the first two issues are called, and the third issue is going to be called Om, the Wrath of God. Okay, so
okay.
which is again, this is a very it's a difficult thing to pull off. It's two parallel stories. Okay, it's a sci-fi, like like your Mad Max kind of
Hmm.
post-apocalyptic sci-fi sort of thing. That is one story that's happening, that is set on Earth. But then there is
Okay.
also a murder mystery happening in heaven, where all the gods
Okay.
are involved in trying to solve a murder mystery. Okay, and there are a group of human characters who are in this
Hmm.
post-apocalyptic situation on Earth, right? And obviously, there's a connection between the two, which
Yeah.
that's a spoiler. But yeah, that's what Om is, right? And then the last one is an anthology, which that's going to be a one shot, but uh, I mean, there's going to be multiple books, but each book is going to be a one shot, right?
Hmm.
The anthology is called Tales from the Deep. It is again very hard to describe. It is about a group of people, sort of normal people, regular people, or I won't say people, right? It's not just humans. It's a regular living beings who are forced to go through an extraordinarily difficult situation, and they get out of it. Okay, so it's six stories, right?
Okay.
Of different people. It could be people, it could be animals, could be robots, right?
Huh.
So those kind of things, right? And it's an anthology of that. But then there's a connecting thread that runs through each of the six stories. So which we'll explain at the end of the book, like why are we showing these six stories, right? What's the connection? These are what we have on plan as of now. So to begin with, we want to at least wrap up these before we think of anything new or announce anything new, because otherwise it's distracting. Because you see the next big thing or next
Yeah.
shiny thing, and you get distracted. You move towards that. So we want to finish these three first before we move to other stuff.
Okay. So it was nice talking to you and discussing all the things like from the perspective of a person who have been a reader and have transformed into multiple roles in the comic industry and very you can say the blessings and the best wishes for the upcoming project of both Black Sheep and Technicolor Lovers, and I wish and I hope that Technicolor Lover makes a mark on the industry and the Black Sheep should rise, and we will have the all the books which you have described right now, because the thing which you have discussed, the story plots, they are looking interesting and I'm looking forward to it. So as soon as I receive my Technicolor Lovers, I will be putting that up as well. So thank you very much for giving me the time and as well as your precious the whole journey which you have shared with me. So it was so nice talking to you. Thank you very much.
It was really great talking to you as well. In fact, I wanted to talk to you for a very long time. Thank you for having me on the show, and
Yeah,
thank you for doing the great work of promoting and highlighting Indian comics to the rest of the world. Because
thank
I
you.
think without like reviewers and people who generally talk about Indian comic books like you guys, I don't think we will be our industry. Some people don't want to call it industry also, but
Yeah,
whatever
that's what I
industry is
think.
there, we are surviving because of folks like you. So
Thank you.
thanks a lot for doing, as they say, right? Thanks for doing the God's work, right?
So I hope we'll be meeting again with the new projects, upcoming projects, and
Definitely.
Alpha is, I think, Alpha third part is on the way as well. You are not
Yeah.
lacking, leaving it behind with the Black Sheep. So because Alpha is one of my favorite characters, and the
Thank you.
both books I have been like reading it, and I love that. Particularly, I the उसका जो style था ना, वो जो Bollywood वाला proper
Uh,
masala style है, that I like very much.
yeah.
So looking forward
Alpha.
for
Sorry, you were saying.
yeah, no, I'm just looking forward for the upcoming projects as well. That's what I was saying.
Thank you. Alpha, yeah, that's something that I am working on it actively, right? The thing is, okay, yeah, there's been obviously some delays, because of people schedule changing and
Yeah,
circumstances changing and all of that, right? That's why the delay. So I hope to pick up, CNA 3, which is called CNA World Breaker, very soon. In fact, yeah, it is probably my favorite character as well that I've written. So yeah, I should not let him down.
yeah. Okay, so it was nice meeting to you, and I hope we'll meet
Likewise.
again. And all the very best once again for the upcoming project, Technicolor
Thank you so much.
Lovers. And very soon I'll be reading it, and I'm excited for the same. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.